Back here on the action on the Chip Shot Football podcast here, and we're going all the way back to Friday now of this past week because obviously there was the Thanksgiving games and there was a lot, to like, but there was certainly a lot to not like, especially for me, watching the Chicago Bears lose the way they did against the Detroit Lions, and off of that, after just how disgusting and egregious that loss was, the Bears announced on Friday that they were officially firing now their former head coach, Matt Eberflus, after that disappointing end to that Thanksgiving game. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. But, the Bears made history technically because they had never fired a head coach during the season before until now. And really, I think Matt Eberflus, for the last couple games, has really been tugging that line of kind of forcing the Bears' hand here. And I'm sure the Bears, if we didn't get games like the Packers game, the way it ended, and what he said after the game, and then this game on top of it, if maybe one of those two things happened, or maybe if we just got the block kick at the end, and maybe we didn't see this kind of ending, I'm sure Matt Eberflus would have probably stayed until the end of the season. But when you get something just so insanely bad to happen on Thanksgiving, for the whole world to watch, I really felt like there was no other choice. And Matt Eberflus, again, like I said, was really tugging that line where when you have things like this happen, and then his comments afterwards as well were pretty unbelievable. So if you guys weren't aware, if you guys didn't watch the Thanksgiving games, first we had that incident against the Packers, right? Not running another play to get closer, deciding to take the timeout and kick the field goal anyway, and then just to have it blocked. That was already pretty bad, especially because afterwards a lot of people weren't satisfied with his explanation of it, as was I. But that was pretty bad, all right? But still, the Bears really weren't going to make a move yet because I think they were probably going to fire him anyway after the season. But like I mentioned, when you have something like what we saw on Thanksgiving happen, it was just, there was no other way to go around it, right? Once you saw, basically on Thanksgiving, Chicago losing 23-20 with a minute left, having a great performance in the second half to just not only come back, but Caleb throwing 3 touchdowns in that second half, looking great overall, with Thomas Brown as the new interim, play caller and, offensive coordinator. Caleb had really stacked up a couple performances where you looked at it now and you're thinking, all right, this is what the number 1 pick was supposed to look like. And he had brought them all the way back, him along with their defense, stopping the Lions' offense basically the entire second half, creating turnovers as well, to give them this opportunity where they were about a minute away from at least taking it into overtime. And then you don't know what would happen, right, with the coin toss and everything like that. And with momentum looking like it was on the Bears' side. It looked like the Lions were a little bit worried. Maybe that was just me, but they definitely had an opportunity here. But like I said, with a minute left, Caleb Williams gets sacked just before the 30-second mark. They still had a timeout, and he gets sacked. So already I'm thinking, like, all right, this is going to be tough. Like, they got sacked. The time's running. I'm thinking, like, Caleb's going to have to make a really good throw here because before this, they got bailed out on that 4th down where it looked like there was no pass interference called, but the refs basically just gave them that lifeline, and they were in field goal range until Caleb took this sack. So it was going to be a very tough situation. But like I said, they still had that timeout left, so it's not really the end of the world yet because you could stop the time. But the clock kept ticking and ticking and ticking until Caleb, was trying to set everything up, and then he looks up at the clock and he has like 6 seconds left. So at that point, there's no point in calling a timeout because if you do, you call a timeout, and now you have to not only throw the ball quickly, but it has to go out of bounds, and and the Lions obviously know that, right? So they're gonna defend the sideline, and if anything, they'll let you catch it in the middle of the field, and time's gonna run out. So already this is a disaster because they didn't call a timeout. I'm wondering, maybe the cameras weren't catching it, or maybe just for some reason nobody was calling a timeout. But with so little time left, Caleb snaps the ball anyway because he's already like hurrying up, and all Chicago could do was just throw it up to basically nobody, and the Lions win the game. with a timeout remaining, they let the time run out and they win the game on a play that really had no chance of being completed. And all that time, just Matt Eberflus was just sitting on the sideline, just watching it all go down, watching his rookie quarterback struggle to not only get everybody organized, right? That's already pretty stressful, right? Obviously, but being the coach and things like this, obviously, no experience being an NFL coach, right? Obviously, but I feel like as a coach, as like actually doing your job and going beyond that, if you notice a player struggling like that, or if you notice, things aren't being handled correctly, you gotta like step in there and do something about it. The fact that he was just watching this all go down, and the fact that he knew that it looked like once you get past, he even said it after the game, like once it goes down after 12 seconds, it's really hard to run another play after that. So he just watched it all go down, knowing that, I mean, at least that's what he said after the game, and still no timeout being called. I thought around 15 seconds, maybe even 10 seconds, I'm thinking, all right, someone's going to call a timeout. They have to, or else this game's already done. And they just threw all the efforts out the window of Caleb in his first year, potentially upsetting one of the best teams in the NFL. That goes all in the trash. The defense played a phenomenal game. Their efforts go in the trash, all because nobody called a timeout, and this end of the game, which is completely mismanaged. And even, we talked about the fact that they got bailed out by the refs. When things are going in your favor like that, and you get a bad call like that, quite honestly, from the refs, and the fact that you got yourself back into this game on your own as well, you got to take advantage of that. You got to get something out of it, at least go into overtime. I'm not saying they probably would have won the game, but take advantage of the fact that the refs just gave you a bad call. And the fact that, again, they completely messed it up at the end is just insane. Insane to watch. Very frustrating as well. It was set up for them to win. To steal a cheap win, obviously, for this game. But it was really hard. You had to try harder to lose that game than to actually win it, based on the call by the ref, based on the way that you were playing and how the Lions just really couldn't get anything together in that second half. You really had to try hard to lose this game, and that's how the Bears ended up, losing this game, right? Basically by their own doing. And even Matt Eberflus had the audacity to say after the game that I think we handled it the right way, basically because he wanted to save that timeout to set up the field goal. But once you realize that that plan is out the window, the fact that you don't audible or, change to something, throw all caution to the wind, basically. And if this plan is not going to work, obviously, for whatever reason, you still got to call the timeout because you got to manage it in the right way. But I don't know. It was extremely frustrating to watch. And according to multiple reports afterwards, the locker room, in their words, according to the reports, was ugly. There was guys that were furious, obviously. There was a lot of yelling. Reportedly, also, Jalen Johnson, their cornerback, was emotional and pissed, according to the reports, and he directed a lot of his anger towards Matt Eberflus. And it wasn't only him. Keenan Allen also pretty much did the same thing, but in a much more, I think, indirect way would be the best way to say it. He said after the game, like, I feel like we did enough as players to win the game. Pretty self-explanatory. Just as players, we did everything we could, and basically inclining that, there has to be other things other than what the players are doing to kind of contribute to this win, or things lacking in that department, right? Obviously, the coaching lacking, the decision-making being poor, obviously, at the end of the games. As players, you can only do so much, is basically what Keenan Allen is saying. And Matt Eberflus finishes his tenure with the Chicago Bears with a 5-17 record in games decided by 7 points or less. And really, overall, just my thoughts on Matt Eberflus and the job that he's done. It just felt like he never stepped up to kind of help Caleb in moments where Caleb needed his help. He just sort of watched, and at one point, it was Shane Waldron's fault, right? He was the first one to go. Then it was also Tyreek Stevenson's fault, right? On the Hail Mary for doing all that extra stuff. It was his fault that they lost that game, right? Then it was Shane Waldron for mismanaging and calling bad plays. And now, after all those guys, kind of got the blame, now it has to fall on Matt Eberflus, right? The excuses ran out, and, it really left the Bears in a place where they had no other opportunity. And to me, this was long overdue, and I don't like the way it sounds, but yeah, he was in a lame duck situation kind of going into this year because of the fact that some fans wanted him gone after last year. So the fact that they kept him around, you understand that you don't want to change too many things up for a rookie quarterback, but if it's not the right fit, if it's not the guy to take you into the future, hopefully, with your rookie quarterback, I like this decision to move on from him. For some people that say that they should have just waited, I don't think it made a difference. I think they're better off with Thomas Brown anyway, calling the plays and really being in Caleb Williams' ear, mainly over Matt Eberflus and the poor decision making that he's gone through all this year. So I think they're better off with Thomas Brown anyway. I don't know where they start looking for head coaches. There's a bunch of names out there. I'm sure Thomas Brown, I think, should be a candidate for that if he wants to, unless he just wants to be the coordinator. But yeah, I mean, the Bears are a good team. I mean, they have a good defense. It's very good, actually. And, they have the weapons in Keenan, DJ, and Roma Dunze. They've been, building something here over the last couple of weeks. We've seen Caleb look better with Thomas Brown now calling the plays. So I like what they're doing, and it just goes to show you, again, serving as a reminder that all the players are great. All of it is awesome to have, to have all the defenses, the pieces, and everything like that. Yes, they're still missing some, but the coaching and the play calling and the time management, the game management, all of that almost exceeds all the players and all the great players you might have. So they are still lacking in that department, obviously, the leadership aspect. So hopefully they could figure it out in 2025 sooner rather than later for Caleb Williams. It's going to be the biggest decision this organization has made in a very long time. If they can get this right, then things are going to look a lot different. But if not, it's going to be more of the same disappointing results for the Chicago Bears. So that's what happened back on Friday. But we got to go back even further to Thursday and kind of talk about the Thanksgiving games, because there was some good ones. There was some lessons we learned. I think a lot of takeaways that we had from those games on Thanksgiving. So I wanted to go over each and every one of them as we, start off this new week. So we're going to go back and talk about those Thanksgiving games when we return after this break.